This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast. This is the podcast where we discuss marketing and business tips to help assist you in your business journeys. I am your host, Daniela, and I'm Penji's Partnership Coordinator. Today, I'm joined with a very special guest, Mallory Musante. Hi, Mallory. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm so happy to have you here today. How are you doing? Tell us a little bit. How's your day going just before we get everything started?
Day is good. It's chilly here. I'm up in Connecticut and it's a cold day, but other than that, it's good.
That's great. So to get the ice, kind of break the ice a little bit, get the ball rolling. I was going to say the ice rolling. I don't know why. To break the ice and get the ball rolling. That is what what I meant to say. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself for anybody watching that doesn't know who you are or what you do, what you're all about?
Yeah. So I am a fractional CMO. So I help small businesses kind of really bridge the gap in between the big vision that they have and the marketing, the strategic marketing moves that they actually need to make that happen. So that's kind of my primary business, but I also have two other businesses right now. One is Bright Beta Co., which is a little bit more of a seasonal business because it's annual planners. So, people it's really focused on helping people set and achieve their goals. So it's structured in a way that helps them kind of check in throughout the year to really kind of get them moving forward in a really intentional way. And then the third one is pretty new. It's Bridge Insights, which is actually you guys designed the logo for. And that is building out dashboards for companies. So marketing dashboards, something that I found in like the 15 plus years of my marketing is that a lot of companies have a really hard time connecting their marketing to their sales. So they don't know the true ROI of what they're doing. So we're building marketing dashboards that actually help them connect those pieces. And then there's an AI component to it as well to help them kind of expedite their analysis process to save them some time and resources as well.
That's amazing. I think what you touched upon for the end, where you said that a lot of businesses struggle with connecting marketing to sales is so true. I've noticed that it's like a trend with especially small business owners who want to convert sales, convert, marketing and like impressions and stuff on social media or SEO or whatever strategy they're using into actual lead gen and sales. And that I think that's always a really big struggle to actually have these people become actual customers or clients or people with purchasing power, right? So I think that that's very important as a thing that I think small businesses are probably one of the biggest worries that they have when they're starting.
Yeah, it's actually funny because we started this company thinking about small businesses because that's who I primarily have worked with throughout my entire marketing career. But it's also a lot of larger companies. They don't have, they're not fully integrated between the sales and the marketing teams as well. So it's definitely a big problem that companies of all sizes are encountering.
Incredible. And actually, I want to know, how did you sort of get started on this journey that led you to becoming a fractional CMO? I mean, I'm wondering how you ended up, sort of figuring out, okay, this is a problem that I can help fix.
Yeah. So my career is very long and it's a wild ride. So I'll try to be as succinct as possible. I actually went to school for marketing. So I do have a degree in marketing and like all of that background. But I always thought I was going to go work in, corporate America. halfway through my sophomore year of college, I actually encountered somebody that hand paints sneakers. And I was like, that is so cool. Like, I wonder if I could do that for women's heels. And so my first company was born while I was still in college. I did that for a few years. It's incredibly difficult to be both the designer and the CEO of the company. And I just wasn't, making quite enough money. I had a job. Once I graduated, I had a job, and I was doing that. And there was just a lot kind of going on. So it wasn't quite as feasible as I had hoped. I learned so much in that company that I still use to this day. And then I transitioned into having more of like an online retail shop for accessories. So similar industry, but just I wasn't actually the one designing it. I was just purchasing from manufacturers and then reselling it online. That was going well, but during that time, I started working for a small PR agency out of New York City. And that's really where I kind of got a ton of experience in the social media world. I had some before, but this is kind of like where I really, really learned a ton of stuff, as well as like PR and some other things. So I was working there, and it was not quite the healthiest environment. So I very much knew that I was going to be laid off at some point. So my coworker and we kind of got talking, and we were like, we could actually just do this on our own. So we actually went off and started a company on our own doing web design, branding, and social media management. So we ran that for 5 years. And during that time, I was like, okay, I need to put all my eggs in like this basket. So I closed down the retail side of things and put all of my eggs in the branding, web design, and social media agency. We ran that for 5 years, and I loved it. We had amazing clients, but I always wanted to do a little bit more of the consulting side. And I was trying to steer like a part of our company in that direction. But since we were known for more of the implementation side of things, it just wasn't quite as aligned. And I was being burnt out. It wasn't really kind of the best fit for me anymore. So I actually walked away from that company at the end of 2020, floundered around for a few months while I decided what I wanted to do, because I wasn't sure if marketing was it anymore. Eventually dipped my toe back in when a couple of clients had reached out to me asking for support again. And then I was like, you know what? I want to focus on the marketing strategy side. Like, that's where I personally really excel. So I was building out strategies for companies. And then I slowly transitioned into more of the fractional CMO role, where I'm actually overseeing the execution and making sure all of the different pieces of marketing actually fit together. So through all of that experience, I got to touch a lot of different pieces of the marketing puzzle. So it actually really helped me kind of figure out how to place things and piece them together to be a really effective marketing ecosystem.
That's such a long journey, I think, to get to where you are. That's insane. I mean, you've done so many things.
Yeah, I told you it was a wild ride.
Yeah. What's crazy to me is like what you said about starting a business in college and then not being able to keep up with it is totally relatable, at least to me. I wasn't even like a business student or marketing or anything like that. I graduated with I would say, like, I'm not going to say political science because it's not really political science. It's called international relations. But it had like political background, so like I was learning about diplomacy and stuff like that. And I don't know, for some reason, I got really into baking when I was in college. And I decided that I wanted to start a baking business. My friends had started one, and it had been really successful for them. And I was like, I want to, like, do that too. And I started to try to sell baked goods that I was good at making. Like, I was like, okay, I can make these cookies and these brownies, and it's like really basic things. It wasn't like I was making these over the top desserts. It was just like homemade stuff. And I thought it was going to be really successful. And in a way it was, because I did get like people asking for stuff. but oh my gosh, it was exhausting. I couldn't I first of all, it was just the actual preparing and everything, but and then it's like I realized that there was so much that I had to do in order to keep that business going.
Yeah.
And I was making almost no money in return, and it was so much time out of my day that I had to invest in like baking and stuff, and I ended up hating it, and I think I lost a bunch of money. Like a lot of the money that I invested ended up just going to waste.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up just kind of quitting. I was like, I'm done with this. Like, um, so what you were saying, just I was like thinking about my story, like, yeah, no, it's hard. I think I didn't really appreciate what it was like to be a business owner until I wouldn't say I became one because it wasn't really like I didn't really ever like establish it as like a formal business as much as it was just like me trying to like sell stuff on Instagram. But it was still too much. Like I think like if I had actually like I had to spend a lot of my time just doing that in order for it to be sustainable.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, like when you're first starting out, like you don't know what you don't know, right? And then you like
Yeah.
realize like I have to wear 10 million hats and this is overwhelming. Especially when like, you don't know what you don't know. So you're like learning along the way. It's a big learning curve for sure.
Yeah, and like I at least I don't know if that happened to you, but for me, I was like, I'm not gonna quit school and I'm not gonna like I graduated and I had to find a job and I couldn't dedicate my life to this baking thing because I was not even making like I kid you not, if I put into perspective how much money I was making a month out of like the amount of cakes that I was making, it was about $200 a month. How am I supposed
Mm.
to live like that?
Yeah.
you know? And like it was just like I couldn't afford to not to like quit my job and just be like full time, let's just like do this until I make it sustainable or like hire. I couldn't scale. I mean, I was in this
Hmm.
really weird situation where I just kind of like was like, yeah, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if I were to start a business now or like doing the same thing, like let's just like if I wanted to start my baking business or whatever again, I would probably be a little bit more prepared and organized. With experience, I think that comes. I think I was super young at that time and I was just kind of like, yeah, this seems fun.
Yes. Yeah. You very much get caught up in the dream of it and everything. But yeah, I was in a similar boat where I was like, the amount of time that it is taking me to like design these shoes and do all of this and for what I'm charging, like which just is not the best move here. So
Yeah, no, it's like, and I think like you kind of learn that there's certain things or hobbies or things that you like that you don't necessarily have to monetize. I think that was a
mhm.
big lesson for me because I was like, yeah, I like to bake, I like to make desserts, but I don't think I want to sell them.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I just enjoy making them when I feel like it and giving them to my friends and family. I don't want to have like a baking business.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, Mallory, you sound like you're very like multifaceted, right? Like so because you are able to design shoes and like do all of these. And like you said you started your agency about web development. I'm assuming you had knowledge on that too. How did you actually acquire all of these different kinds of skills throughout your life? Because I think they're very specific. I don't think anybody can just like go in and design a shoe, for example.
Yeah. So to be fair, I wasn't fully designing them. I had just kind of like people brought me like their own shoes, so they just had to be leather, and I was then going and painting like a design on them based off of what they like wanted and stuff. Um, but a lot of it was just I just tried it and learned along the way. Because when we did start the agency, I actually didn't really have a lot of web design experience, but my business partner did. So she actually started off by doing the web design. And like to be fair too, we were using Squarespace, so a lot more user friendly for beginner designers and stuff like that. But I very much was like, I want to contribute to this side of the business as well. So I started learning, I started playing around, and I think I was like building my own website, and that's how I kind of taught myself. And then I just started, being like, okay, well, I want to do this thing that's not a built-in feature on Squarespace. Is there coding I can figure out? So I started kind of like searching the internet to try this And then like the more you do it, obviously, the more you understand
Yeah.
how that goes. So like I kind of almost like took over where she was doing a lot of the graphic design side of things for websites, and then I would do a lot of the coding if we needed like a custom feature or, you know, element that we wanted added in. So most of the stuff is like very much self-taught through trial and error on my own. So I do really like to try to, especially now, if I'm trying a new strategy or something along those lines, like I very much test it out on my own business or one of my businesses, just to kind of like see how it goes before, you know, I'm recommending it to a client or trying it with a client as well.
Yeah, I think like there's a bunch of stuff that I think people don't realize that you can teach yourself. I wouldn't say I learned how to code, but I did sort of dabble my feet into it, my toes into it, I guess.
Yep.
I mean, I keep trying to use these phrases and then don't use them properly. I should stop. But I like, do you remember Tumblr?
Yep.
Okay, so I was like a teenager. I was a child when Tumblr was all the rage back in like 2014, 2013. And I got really into it. Like I was like, I love this thing. And I didn't know that in order for you to customize your blog on Tumblr, you had to code.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you had to go in and change the code, and Tumblr like would allow it, but you had to know how to use HTML specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I want my blog to look really cool. And I sort of like, I kind of became like a Tumblr influencer because I had like a few followers. So it was like even more important to me to have like a good blog. And I started trying to figure out like how to do it. And like some people would sell templates, but I wanted to like do my own thing. And in order to do that, I had to learn how to code. And I literally went in and I just started Googling how to do it. And I only knew how to code for my Tumblr blog. Like that's all I knew. I knew very specific things like how to change fonts and colors and the cursors and stuff like that. I can't really tell you like in detail, and I'm in no way a designer or like a web developer or anything like that. But I think like I didn't really think about the fact that I was learning coding when I was doing that. Until years later, I was like, oh yeah, that's computer programming, right? Like I was just like testing it out to get a good blog.
Yeah. That's so I think you're a little bit younger than me. My generation, it was MySpace that we did that with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I never used MySpace. I know that MySpace was the same though, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, very much the same. And yeah, I also think that you know, Squarespace is similar to where you like start to learn, you know, like I wouldn't be able to go to like a WordPress site and like know anything about, you know, customizing that or anything. So which like it's a similar framework and everything, but like I just got used to like knowing what the different elements were called inside of Squarespace. So I knew what to like change and everything. But I also during that process really understood and like learned like what the structure of different pages, you know, like what performs really well, how we want to set it up for optimization and stuff, which is now really helpful in what I'm doing. So I can help my clients optimize their web pages based off of kind of like what we know about their target market, as well as just kind of like these web design principles and how we want to structure things as well. So full circle.
Yeah, no, it totally helped in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on that topic, I wanted to ask, because you are very much, I think you're very knowledgeable in terms of social media. And I think social media is like such a complicated topic for business owners. And one that people, I think like I spoke to like a local business owner once from like where I live that she wanted more people to, and this wasn't even like a serious conversation. It was just like I went to her coffee shop and it was super empty and she just kind of like chit chatted with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then she ended up telling me that she was really struggling to get clients and she didn't know how to do it. And I was like, you need to get on social media. Like I was like, oh my gosh, just like go on TikTok and Instagram and like make cute videos. Cause her coffee shop was also very like visually pleasing.
Yes.
And I was like, you're just not on socials. Like, that's the problem. And she was like, I don't want to do socials. Like, I don't do social media. She was very opposed to it. She was intimidated by it. She didn't want to show her face. And that was like the conversation, but it kind of made me think about how, like complicated it might be for a person who is not into social media to have a business and then be faced with the fact that they kind of have to, or that it might help them. And I do think that we see a lot of businesses on social media nowadays, but a lot of them are not doing that well, right? Because also I think there's oversaturation of that.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to hear your take on all of this, on people who don't want to do social media, on people who are not doing it properly. Do you think it's a channel that everybody needs to be on, or do you think it's, it depends on the business? Floor is yours.
Yeah. So my answer is always going to be it depends, which is like, I know, the most annoying possible answer to give. But I do think a lot of it depends on what their business model is. So a local cafe of some kind, like, yes, I would highly recommend them be on social media. For the most part, I'm going to recommend that they be on social media no matter what, because a lot of people look at social media as that's how I'm going to get sales. That's how I'm going to get this. That's, like they're looking at like the end goal, which yes, social media can do that. But a lot of the times, and I'm working with a lot of service providers, but a lot of the times people are going between your website and your social media accounts to actually help kind of validate their decision and help them make the decision. So it's like, like if you think about Instagram, for example, it's much easier to digest content because you can just binge it and scroll through it and look through it. And it's short form compared to a blog, for example. So it's a much faster way for people to be like, yes, I like their vibe, like the overall situation, just like they're saying things that like resonate with me. And it just like helps infuse your personality a little bit more. It helps infuse the brand persona. Like it just gives them a better idea on like what that looks like. So for the most part, yes. Depending on what your business structure is, your business model is going to determine which social media platform you want to be on. But I do think nowadays, yes, social media is pretty much almost a guarantee. There obviously are exceptions to that, but from like a blanket perspective, I would say most likely, yes, like you need to be on social media of some kind. And there are ways to do it that doesn't feel super overwhelming. Like I think a lot of people are like, I don't want to go and have to do like dances and lip syncing and stuff, but like you don't have to. Like you can find a way to make social media work for you. And like specifically for like a cafe, like, are you kidding me? Like showing
your food,
like I was gonna say the baking, the process, like there's so many different things that people love to watch, right?
You don't have to do the dances. I agree. But I like, when you say that, I think like I've heard some people have this take of how social media is very youth, like young people oriented, right? Like, and a lot of the TikTok dances and stuff, that's kind of what's trendy now on because I've also seen some pushback specifically with platforms like TikTok because they're like, well, what am I going to get there? Just like 15-year-olds and stuff like that. And I guess my take is a little bit like, I think it depends on the type of content that you're making, because I think that there's all kinds of people in all social media platforms. Obviously, the elderly are not going to be as tech savvy, and maybe their presence is going to be a little bit different. But I think aside from like very much elder people, I think most people, like my parents, are on social media. Like my mom is not specifically, she might not be on like TikTok and the TikTok dances part, but she's on Facebook Reels. It's Reels, right, on Facebook?
Yeah.
I know it's Instagram Reels, but I don't know if it's like the same thing, right? Like Facebook, she's watching them on Facebook Reels, and then I'm always telling her, like, you do realize that that's the same thing, right? And she's like, no, I'm not on that TikTok platform. And I'm like, Mom, it's the same thing. A lot of people just repurpose their videos on all of these different platforms. And she might not understand it, but I think like as a business owner, it would make more sense to me that you understand that, even if that person thinks like, oh no, TikTok devil. Right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And like, that's the thing is like, that's one of the ways to make it a little bit easier is, okay, like maybe you don't want to be on TikTok. And again, this is very much going to be determined what platform you're using based on your target market, and like your industry and things like that. But, you know, if you want to create in Instagram because that's what's easier for you, then you can reshare that to TikTok. I mean, it's usually the opposite, but there are opportunities to do that if TikTok is the platform where you're like, I don't want to necessarily be on there. So yeah, I'm like very big into like, let's repurpose, let's make things a lot easier, because as we know, content creation is a full-time job. And when you're a business owner who's not, your business is not content creation, that's a lot of work to do while you're trying to do whatever it is that your business actually does.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I do agree with what you said about how people use that like to sort of legitimize the business in their heads. Because I think of myself as a consumer, and usually I learn about a business. Like if I go to a place and then I'm like, oh, I really like this food. Can you tell me where to find you? There'll usually be like, follow us on Instagram, and I will. I'll follow you on Instagram and I'll check it out. And then when I want to go see you, I think Instagram has become the sort of search engine for me for that, for businesses, like especially the small ones. Because I go in there to see if they have like, they should probably have posted on their story if they're having a sale, right? They're probably telling me if there's a discount, if there's an event, if there's something going on. I go there to check the location. And then if I don't find it on Instagram, then I'm like, okay, fine, let me go to the website. But I think as a consumer, I usually focus on having my answers on Instagram first, and then everything else comes second.
Yeah. And like, that's actually a great point of like, you know, a lot of people are using it as a search engine. So some of my clients, like a couple of my biggest clients, actually found me by searching a specific term on Instagram and finding me. They looked through my content, then they went over to my website and then inquired. Like, so it is very much, but I've also had people find me other ways. They go to my website and then they go to my Instagram account because they want to see a little bit more. So there's a lot of different ways that people can interact with you on social media. So just having a presence is going to be helpful.
Yeah. And like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be with like, you know, flashy things.
Mm-hmm.
Although I do think we have seen a lot of businesses, I think I mentioned this earlier, who have been on social media, but are not seeing a lot of success from it. I talked to a lot of people on this podcast who tell me that there's plenty of people who are like, you know, like I'm doing all of this for social media and I'm getting nothing out of it. I don't even know why I should keep doing it. What do you think? What's your take on that? You know, like of businesses actually failing when, you know, they're like putting themselves out there on socials, but they're getting nothing out of it.
Yeah, so that is something that kind of, for lack of a better term, like weighs heavy on me because, you know, there are like, you know, people out there that are social media experts and they want to be like, it's not the algorithm, it's your content. No, it is actually the algorithm. They change it. They're prioritizing ads, like specifically Meta. So your organic content is being like deprioritized. Like that's just the name of the game now, right? So it is really unfortunate, but I think it's still important to have, you know, a presence and kind of think about like, how do you use social media now? How do you think your target market, and like you can literally ask your audience how they're using it. And one thing that I noticed from my own social media consumption is I very rarely even scroll my feed anymore. I'm going straight to stories. So I actually this year have decided like I'm actually decreasing how often I'm posting on my own feed, and I'm just going to focus a lot more on stories. And I can share, you know, posts when I have them to my stories and some things like that. So just kind of like figuring out kind of what works for you and helps you kind of see the maximum impact. The other thing that I will say too is I like to think about the content that I share as a funnel. So, you know, having some of that more like high engagement, so like really highly shareable, you can kind of call it viral content, even if it's not going viral. So it's like that type of content where it's, you know, really easy to share. It's kind of related to your business, but it's just like not necessarily like buy my stuff. It's just, you know, tangential. Then I like to think of like an educational type of content. connection. So something to like have more of like a human to human interaction, social proof, and then promotional. So when you're thinking about it like that, and you're kind of like filtering through some of this content, it helps kind of like build that know, like, trust factor with people. And I think the other thing to remember too is like, yes, the algorithm is deprioritizing, but I also think people are just scrolling and like not interacting with content the way we used to. There's a lot of like silent lurkers now. And like, I'm guilty of that too.
Me too.
So it's like, all right, like people are still seeing your content. People are still like
people are just lazy. I mean, I feel like if I see, maybe not lazy, that's not the word, but I guess the attention span is a lot smaller. The interest is just like, you want something that's easily digestible and bite-sized and funny and like, all put in one little video.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't meet the requirements, most of the time you're just like, next. Because I've done that too, of like been like, I don't care about this. Like, or I'm not reading all that. Like, and then I'll just like keep scrolling. And they might have like a very interesting take or very like funny thing, whatever it is that I'm like looking for at that moment. But I if it's too long, like I have done that where I'm just like, I don't feel like reading all that right now.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the one thing that I would say, like, if you can practice and get better at anything, it is trying to figure out what hooks work for your audience, because you're right. Attention spans have gotten much shorter, due to social media, honestly. So kind of figuring out what are the hooks that you can put up that are going to grab people's attention a little bit more. And then maybe it's, how do I keep them on this video or this piece of content a little bit longer? So you can kind of like get really good at one piece of the content creation part. So figuring out the hooks, then figuring out, the engagement, how to keep them around and stuff as well. So just take it, one piece at a time to really master it.
Well, Mallory, on that note, I think it's a great note to end on. It's been great having you today on the podcast. But before we wrap it up, I do want to give you the space to plug anything that you want to plug, or tell your viewers, direct them to anywhere that you want to direct them to. The floor is totally yours.
Awesome. Well, you guys can visit my website. It's mallorymusante.com, or you can find me on Instagram or Threads. Those are two of the platforms I spend the most time on, and it's both at Mallory Musante on there as well.
Awesome. I will be adding the links to the description of this video. So for those that are watching, you can just click on the description. And for the listeners, go to the video. I can't do anything else. Thank you so much for doing this, Mallory, and everyone else. I'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.